Howdy, all. Have to say that it's summer, and when summer comes around, Russ, there's always construction on the roads, and I really despise it when you want to go out for coffee at a place 5 minutes away, and it takes basically 40 minutes to get to the Starbucks. That's
rough.
It's insane. It's like, I mean, I get it that, it's hot weather, usually not raining, and this is the time of the year to get the construction done, but it just seems like all over the place for like the last week, construction has just slowed down everything everywhere I go. So I'm getting paranoid about it.
Is it ruining your life, Mike?
Yeah, it is.
Okay.
Well, talk about a life ruined. O.J. Simpson, who, in Buffalo was more popular as a running back. Well, the old joke was he was a slashing running back.
Right.
Just kidding. But he will be coming up for parole on Thursday for the armed robbery charges that got him put in jail. Ironically, the evidence of him being involved in armed robbery was less convincing than the evidence that he got found not guilty for murdering his ex-wife. And that's the concern. I've seen a few things and watched a couple things on this, and one of the concerns is the fact that, especially with this, the O.J. Made in America documentary, which was fantastic. I'd suggest anybody to watch it. That won an Oscar. That he could be denied parole, but not because of what he was convicted on, but what he was not convicted on.
Well, all right, so there's a few layers here. First, the OJ I first knew ran for, 200 and something yards against the Jets in the rain. I watched it on TV and thought, wow, this guy's just a tremendous athlete, which he was. And then, he went through life as a actor and sort of like a privileged guy in society where there was this dark side of him.
Yeah.
And so when the dark side was revealed, I wasn't shocked that he got nailed for something. At that point, OJ's luck just ran out, and he was getting into bad situation after bad situation. And so is it possible that these charges were a little trumped up? Sure. But at the end of the day, you're now thinking about releasing a guy that really has done nothing but bad things for the last decade and change. He's been in jail for 9 years, so he'll argue that. But, for the last 20 years, I defy you to name me something that OJ's done that's positive that you know about.
No, nothing. No, and nothing.
Other than not getting in trouble in the country club jail that he's in, because apparently it's the easiest of jails I've read.
Right. I mean, he's been, quote, a model prisoner, unquote.
Right.
So, but see, that's the thing. All this, his gaining parole, and he was paroled apparently on some of the charges that he was convicted of 4 years ago when he was up for parole. So he was like only in jail for the armed robbery charge or a couple of the charges.
That still held a 33-year sentence because it was federal armed robbery.
Right. So
I think that meant there was a gun involved. I'm pretty sure.
Yes. Yeah. His burden for parole this time around apparently is much less. That's why a lot of experts think that he is going to be granted parole. And it's funny because one of his attorneys from one of the many legal situations he's been involved in was interviewed, I think it was on Fox News, and said, what should happen here is he's granted parole and he just disappears. But he believes
that won't happen.
But he is such a media whore that he will, go out and basically sell his story to Oprah or somebody who will pay him millions of dollars. And I was actually having a discussion about this in the fact that, a news outlet, when it comes to this, like a 2020 thing or a Megyn Kelly thing or whatever, they will pay money for this. But the thing is, he's got a judgment.
Showing the parole hearing. I'm not watching the parole hearing. I don't care.
He's got a judgment against him from the Goldman family because of the civil suit. Right. So what's going to happen is, because the only way that OJ is doing this is for his own personal gain, it'll be something like the money will be given to some foundation that he can tap and that the Goldmans can't. So that's how ugly this whole situation is.
And it just unfortunately no good can come of this. If he gets out, really no good can come of it. I get that this is America and he deserves his shot. I get that Charles Manson was just paroled. I get it. And that's
was he? Whoa. Was he?
Oh, yeah.
Charles Manson?
Yeah. He's living in Texas now. I'll find out where. Hold on.
Wow, that one I didn't hear about because
if he's not out today, he's getting out.
Wow, that's I mean.
So what's the difference? But what's the difference?
Well, I mean, the difference is that Manson killed about. I mean, Manson. I mean, there is no difference that they're both murderers. But I'm just saying is I'm surprised Manson ever. I mean, John Hinckley got out. We know that. But yeah, that one I missed. I didn't hear.
Oh, you know what? Snopes is saying it's false. All right.
Okay.
But it was out there in a couple different stories. All right.
Yeah, I would have been really shocked if Manson ever gets out.
But he does have the opportunity for parole too, like all these guys. I don't see a reason to parole OJ. I don't see a reason to watch this because let's see what OJ looks like and how he's aged and he's lost 70 pounds. I don't care. I don't care if OJ's in better shape than me. Let him stay in jail.
But this is. I mean, honestly, we are in the realm and the age of reality TV.
I know,
and it's honestly, in a way, it started with the OJ trial. I mean, there were examples of before that, but it started, and you know, you go from things like the Kardashians. You know, shows on like the Home and Garden Network, like Flip and Flop and cooking show. Everything is like reality TV based. It's not like nobody wants to watch like regular television. Everybody wants to watch something with a tinge of reality. So watching some guy who was a murderer get paroled, that'll be ridiculous ratings, and that's why there'll be a bidding war for his story if and when he gets out, and that's the thing. Will it be Russ like Pete Rose after the fact? He's going to write a book or tell a story and say, yes, I murdered Nicole, because he can't be put in jail for it. It's double jeopardy.
Yeah, I don't know.
So anyway, let's
anything's possible. Anything is possible.
Let's get to hockey.
All right.
Hello, Hockey World. Today is Tuesday, July 19th, 2017.
I'm Russ Cohen from Sportsology.
And I'm Michael Lagello, and this is the Hockey Buzzcast here on HockeyBuzz.com. Just a bit of an update from yesterday, because we started the show with some tweets, some news from Slava Malamud and from Elliot Friedman regarding some participation in the Olympics, that there was sort of a double secret plan of a backup schedule that included an Olympic break. Ken Campbell from the Hockey News said he had touched base with members of the NHLPA and the NHL, and says that there is zero chance of the NHL players being released to the Olympics. So right now, as it stands, as Friedman reported yesterday, players on AHL-only contracts, that's meaning players who cannot play in the NHL, who can only play with the American Hockey League or in the ECHL, would be eligible to play for any of their national.
I nodded off there. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm sorry, but I'm just saying. I mean, we're not talking about. We
read a list yesterday. It's not a great list.
Yeah, we're not talking about any kind of great prospects. We're talking about, guys who are veteran players.
The best players could be the draft eligible players. Those, if they're allowed to be released, they'll be the best players on that team.
Right. So you could have. And that's the question of whether the CHL will allow players to go to the Olympics.
Right.
Clearly anybody on anybody on AHL, NHL two-way contracts or one-way contracts will not be allowed, because they have the possibility of, and now again, and we won't know about this, but that noise that Alex Ovechkin made about skipping and leaving.
Yeah.
I honestly would be shocked if he's allowed to do that.
He's not going to be allowed to do it. Yeah. He's not.
Okay. It was unusual yesterday, Russ, that after the signing occurred earlier this month, that the press conference for Kevin Shattenkirk occurred yesterday. But it did, and as we know, Shattenkirk signed a 4-year contract with the Rangers for pretty big money, close to $7 million. And the Rangers have made some interesting moves during the offseason. Girardi's gone. They had they re-signed Brendan Smith. Now they bring Shattenkirk. They acquire Anthony D'Angelo from Arizona. So you have a younger and more mobile defense this year, this coming year, than you had in the last couple of years with the Rangers.
Yeah, no question. I mean, Shattenkirk's thrilled. He thinks there's something big going on there. And it could be, and I don't blame him for being excited. I think he wanted to show off his new hairdo. He did the right thing. He went the route of Mark Messier originally, where we have that sort of same do where you keep what you got buzzed on the side and you let everything else go. I don't think Shattenkirk will ever go full shaved off, and I don't do it, and I don't blame him. So good luck. What is it, 22 is his jersey number? That's good. Good number. I think he's excited to play again in front of his hometown fans and family and stuff. That's great for him. And that hasn't always gone bad in hockey. It's gone bad in other sports. Darryl Strawberry in L.A., that was bad. Eric Davis in L.A., that was bad. I mean, we could talk about more times that it's bad than it's good, but in hockey it doesn't always go bad. So. Well,
Chris Drury, he's from Connecticut, but he went back to the Rangers, and that really didn't. I mean, he didn't play badly, but
it was good for a little while. Then it was, then it went bad, but it was good for a while. So, but most of the time, I would say it works out okay. So I'm not concerned there. What I am concerned about is this. I guess there's this discussion now online where the Rangers signed Alexander Georgiev out of SM Liga. He played 5 games in the World Juniors in 2016. I didn't think enough of him to really put him as a big-time guy as far as getting signed. Maybe the Rangers see something in him. That's great. He's a guy who could come right over like Magnus Hellberg did and fill that role. Fine. No harm, no foul. You sign him to an ELC. But then that got into discussion teams' prospects, And so the Rangers have him. They have Shesyorkin. They have Halverson. They've got Tyler Wall, who plays for UMass. Duluth. Sorry. UMass Lowell. Sorry. UMass Lowell. And then they have Adam Huska, who plays for UConn. So it's a nice grouping of guys. And I saw Huska play for the World Juniors, and look, his team was horrible, right? But I thought he played well. I saw Wall play in the East Regionals. He played a great game against Notre Dame and lost in overtime to Cal Peterson, who was a little bit better of a goalie. Halverson, had a nice OHL career. Not a good year last year. He had an .887, save percentage. He needs to show a lot more. And Shesyorkin played the most games he's ever played in his life last year at 39 games. And so when you add all that up, I can't look at them and say they're one of the top 5 goaltending prospect systems in hockey, because young goalies need to play games. It doesn't matter what league you're in at some point. The main point is they need to play. And if a guy has, like Shesyorkin as an example, before last year had only played up to 25 games as the most in his career, it doesn't matter what your numbers are at that point. You really are untested. And so that's my problem here is Wall's in his first year, going to his second year. Huska, I believe, is the same thing. Like, these guys still need a lot more seasoning before I'm willing to say, hey, this is one of the best prospect pools. And that's why when I'm looking at that, and we'll talk about who we think the best prospect pools are, my grading really goes with, do you have a guy that's close? Do you have a guy that in 2 years could take the starting job? If you do, I don't even care what else is there. Like, I don't care if you have 4 or 5 guys. You really just need one. And so that's my basis of this.
Well, and to take it to, obviously I always take it to the Maple Leafs. I mean, the Maple Leafs right now, they drafted Ian Scott out of the Western Hockey League in the 4th round this year. They have Joseph Wall, 3rd round pick last year, who split time with Tyler Parsons at the split time with Tyler Parsons at the World Junior last January, and he's probably he'll be battling with Jake Ottinger for the starting goalie for Team USA in the World Junior in Buffalo. But this is a prospect. He had a good year, freshman year at Boston College. He's not really going to be on the radar for the Leafs for probably another 2 years. I mean, he'll probably stay in college for another.
It's more likely 3 or 4.
Well, I'm talking about like, okay, he'll play another year, maybe 2 at Boston College. Then they'll sign him to a pro contract.
Right.
Then he'll play at least a year, maybe 2 in the AHL, unless.
Right.
So you're talking a significant investment that the guy will get to the NHL at 22, 23 years old.
Right.
So you're talking 3 years, 4 years down the road. And, but right now, like in the immediate future, he's not in the picture. And after Frederick Anderson, if Frederick Anderson gets hurt, your plan B is Curtis McElhinney and Garrett Sparks. That's scary that's something that could potentially derail a team from making a playoff run, is if they have to put Sparks or McElhinney in there for a long period of time. Whereas other teams, and we put out a poll on Twitter about teams that have a viable plan B option, if in case their goaltender, their number one, gets injured, they have somebody in the pipeline that either could step in this year or step in within a year or two.
Right.
And I mean, the 4 teams that we listed were Los Angeles, the Dallas Stars, Calgary, and Philadelphia. And let's just go through them quickly because LA has Jonathan Quick. Jonathan Quick had that lengthy injury last year. Peter Budaj saved their season, at least an attempt or a possibility of making the playoffs. Now this year, after trading for Ben Bishop, they let Bishop go. And the number 2 goaltender, either he's going to play as the backup in LA or play with their AHL team, will be Cal Peterson, who left the Buffalo Sabres as a UFA and signed with the Kings. I don't think the length of time it's going to take Peterson to get to the NHL is that long.
No, I don't think it's that long. I think it's 2 years.
If that.
I mean, he could be a backup next year.
Yeah, I mean, they may want him to play in the AHL so he can play 55 to 60 games and have Jeff Zadkoff be the backup with the Kings, and he can do that because he's done that many times. The Dallas Stars they signed Ben Bishop, so at the NHL level they're taken care of, but they bring in Ottinger. He was their first round pick, right? Late,
So, which I correctly identified because on our show that we did on Sirius, when I did it with Shane Malloy, he didn't think there'd be a first round goalie, and I said I think Ottinger will go in the first round. But I was wrong on other stuff. But I was right on that.
And they got him with the Anaheim pick from the Patrick Eaves deal because it was late in the first round. So so they have a goaltender who, will, like I said, will make the World Junior team. And is he BU? Is that where he's playing?
Yeah,
BU?
he's BU. He's already been in the playoffs. He's already played in the Bean Pot. Like, he's already on a really good cycle of playing in big games, important games early in his career. Yeah. And that's what you want to see for what you might identify as a number 1 goalie. Now,
Calgary, they bring in.
I think Calgary's is the best.
Yeah, Calgary's got 2 of them. They've got,
and here's going to be the argument. Okay, I'm going to lay this out because Philly fans are going to be like waiting, to hear everything we say. But the 2 that Calgary has, arguably, is closer than the 2 Philly has, only because John Gillies is closer than anybody in the Philly organization. That's just a fact.
Right. Now, Gillies might just play in the AHL this year because they brought in Mike Smith on a discount. They got Arizona to eat some of his money. He's got another 2 years, I believe, left on his contract. Yeah, 2 years. And they get Eddie Lack at a discount from Carolina. So, they're probably set at the NHL level. But we're talking about Gillies and we're talking about Tyler Parsons. And Tyler Parsons is an excellent prospect. So they've got 2. Now I could see, Russ, that there might not be room for 2 prospects like that, and maybe they use one of those guys as a piece in a trade.
Yeah, down the road, sure.
Yeah, and the other,
it's a nice place to be. And to be honest, Gillies is almost ready to start in the NHL now.
Yeah, he's recovered from the ACL injury. Oh. Now we were limited to four teams on the Twitter poll. But we had a couple more. But the 4th one was Philadelphia, and with Philadelphia, it's one guy. It's Carter Hart.
No, it's Thomas Sandstrom too.
Yeah, but I think Hart.
Felix Sandstrom, Thomas Sandstrom.
Yeah. Wait a second. Does he high stick everybody?
He does. No, Felix Sandstrom too. I mean, they're both worthy of mention, and some like Sandstrom better, some like Hart better. I really like Hart better. I think he's just better mentally at this point. Sandstrom is maybe the more athletic goalie, but a lot of times I like the more cerebral goalie. And so I always use Mike Richter as an example as a cerebral goalie. Right. So I think Hart's in that vein, but both are great. Both are really, really good, but both are still at least 2 years away.
Now
and that's why Calgary's a little bit closer.
Right, and right now the poll really, we've had a couple hundred votes, and it's really like split down the middle here. Philadelphia 30%, LA 25%, Dallas 24%, Calgary 21%. We had some comments to it. Pete Story 771 on Twitter was like, Philadelphia, okay. I'm like, he doesn't understand. I guess he doesn't understand.
Get it, really?
Yeah, he doesn't get it.
These guys played in the World Juniors last year.
And I made the response that Carter Hart's one of the best young goaltending prospects, and he's like, zero experience at the pro level. That's not the point. He's a prospect.
That's not the point.
Yeah, exactly.
None of them have pro experience in this little ranking.
Now, this one, Josh Rubin on Twitter was making a case for Montreal in the sense that Charlie Lindgren, Fucale, Caden Primo. I mean, honestly,
it's okay.
That's okay. I think
it's worthy of mention, but it's not in the same vein as these organizations. Not yet.
Yeah, Jeremy Collins on Twitter says Pittsburgh. I give that a little bit of credit with Tristan Jarry there. I think he's a good up-and-coming young goaltender. Yep. Another
mention for sure.
Yeah, the Devils with Mackenzie Blackwood.
Sure, but he's still 2 to 3 away. He is.
And the ones that we discussed, I mean, the Islanders are, I mean, the
Islanders to me are the next one, because Linus Soderstrom, he's probably going to come over next year, and then in 2 years could be right in there for the Islanders if they want him to be.
Yeah, and what was the other, the goalie?
They have a Russian goalie too.
Sorokin.
Yes, Sorokin, who I'm not sure. He just signed a new deal in the KHL, but he does get mentioned in the group. So it's a strong pairing.
I'd say honorable mentions would be Winnipeg with Comrie, and I mean Hellebuyck is at the NHL level, but Vancouver with Thatcher Demko. Yep. And I actually think a dark horse would be Washington with Samsonov.
Yeah, if for some reason there's a year they decide that Braden Holtby's not exciting them and they bring Samsonov over, that's, he's the best goalie probably outside of the NHL right now. So they definitely get mentioned too. So all of those teams worthy of mention. But, like I said, these are the 4 we've picked are really good in the sense that they've got guys that are close.
Yeah, check out that poll on Twitter at my feed at Mike and Buffalo, and cast your vote. We'll give you the final results tomorrow on the webcast. Some news and notes here. Jim Nill, Dallas Stars general manager, addressed the Valeri Nichushkin scenario. For those who don't remember, Nichushkin left the Stars last year, purportedly because he didn't get along too well with Lindy Ruff. From what I remember, Russ, he signed a 2-year deal in the KHL with CSKA Moscow. So that's the reason why Nill is saying he will return, but he won't return until next season. So, you can say it's a good year of development, but this guy scored well in his rookie year as an 18 or 19-year-old. So I don't know how much progress he's making developing in the KHL. I think they're just being deprived.
He's just making money, and he wants to make money, and he wants to feel wanted, and I think now he probably feels wanted at the Dallas level. I think it's good that they addressed this. Hitchcock had good luck with Tarasenko, and so there's no reason to think he wouldn't have good luck with him. So I think in year 2 of the Hitchcock regime, it's a good time to bring him in. If Lindy Ruff were still there, we wouldn't even be talking about this. Like, it's just the way it is.
Yeah.
And this was smart for Jim Nill to sort of let the fan base know, hey, he's still going to be here. This isn't like Ilya Kovalchuk, and we're going to see him 5 years from now, maybe, because Nichushkin could really help that lineup. So that's a pretty important thing to mention over a summer.
I mean, we're talking about a big. I mean, we're talking like 6'3", 6'4", 195 pounds, big, fast, power forward type winger with a good shot. I mean, he's got a lot of skill. he can move. I mean, so this is a guy who, I mean, if he could come back this year, I mean, with all the additions that they've made, he would be a key part. I mean, I'm sure if they could, they would have liked to have brought him back this year, but they just can't. So, interesting note here from Ray Shero at the end of the Devils developmental camp. He was asked regarding the Ilya Kovalchuk thing. We talked a little bit about this yesterday, and here's a direct quote from Shero. "I didn't control where I could trade him or sign him. It was really up to him what was good for him and his family. I never got involved in that part with teams because that was up to Covey. He's a real good player, and if he had been back this year, it would have been fantastic. And if it's going to be next year for himself, that's great, but it won't be in New Jersey." So basically, he said
he doesn't want to play for them, but every year, what New Jersey could get for him goes down the amount.
Yeah, and now it goes down to nothing because he's a UFA. I mean, that was the one. That's
right. Yeah, next year he's just complete free and clear.
He's a complete free. And see, this is the thing. I think he would have gained more interest as a UFA, but the problem is he turns 35, and because he turns 35, then that contract is guaranteed no matter what he does, unless they put him on long-term injury or something like that. So really, I think the market for him is going to be affected by the fact that he's 35. Is he still a good player? I guess. I mean, I can't really tell.
Look, I still think he can get 50 points at the NHL level.
Yeah. Now you made me aware of the Nick Bonino throwing out the first pitch at I think it was a Hartford
Yard Goats, one of the worst names in sports.
Yeah, where the hell is that?
I guess because back in the day, people owned a yard goat, so would eat their grass and they wouldn't have to cut the lawn in Hartford. But these days, they hire people for that in Hartford. That's the way it works.
I thought, what is it? The Scranton Wilkes-Barre Rail Riders or something like that.
The Lehigh Valley Iron Pigs comes a close second, or the Binghamton Rumble Ponies. Whenever you have a public naming contest like Binghamton did, you get an answer like Rumble Ponies. That's just, that's all.
But he was still wearing a boot.
Still wearing a boot.
Yeah, which indicates the chicanery that was going on during the Stanley Cup final about, he might play in Game 4. Yeah. Well, he's still in a boot a month after the Stanley Cup is over with. So he was never anywhere close to being. No,
he was never anywhere close. That was all just smoke and mirrors and him just with guts and guile trying to do it. But I have to give him credit. He's the first guy I've ever seen get to the mound with a big boot on, and he still had a pretty good throw. And so good for Nick Bonino. He's from that area. Hopefully there was a lot of people in the stands to cheer him.
Yeah. I want to bring this up because I heard about it. I've heard about it over the last week, and I don't know how serious it is, but there is a little bit of buzz around the Penguins and the possibility of them trading Phil Kessel, which of course, perks the ears of everybody in Toronto because, he's won 2 Stanley Cups since he left the Leafs, but he had a great playoff, not this past season, but the first year. But $6.8 million for another, I believe, 5 seasons for Kessel. And, right now the Penguins are, they're not up against the cap because they got rid of Marc-Andre Fleury, or he was picked in the expansion. So they're not in cap jail, but there might be a little bit of a sense that they could move Kessel now and get something for him, as opposed to waiting a year or two, which is always been the theory of observers of the Maple Leafs, is that when Kessel gets to 31 and 32 years old, the fact that he was never somebody who devoted himself to keeping his body in premium shape.
But he has done that the last 2 or 3 years.
Right. But the Penguins potentially, possibly trading him might be an indication that that's a concern of theirs as well.
I think they're just tweaking him to get a little something out of him. Rutherford came out 4 days ago and said it's about trading him. It's not something I foresee happening right now. I think that's just a little bit of a message to Phil to train hard this summer and give us a little more because we didn't like what we saw out of you in the Cup run, which is fair, right? He blended in more than he stood out this year.
Yeah. Now, okay. I did this. I took a look at the free agent class of last July, of the 2016 free agent class. And my theory for at least a couple of years, with the exception here or there, is that free agency, at least unrestricted free agency, is dead. That you are not going to get really effective players in unrestricted free agency. They're either going to be too old or they're going to be overpriced for what you get out of them.
Most times. There's always going to be exceptions.
There's always going to be exceptions, and the guy like Patrick Eaves was an exception last year. They got that, the Dallas Stars got him for $1 million, and he scored a ton, and then they converted him into a first-round pick, and they got Jake Ottinger, and Anaheim got a guy who, until he was injured, played well for them, and then they re-signed him. So it worked out well for both Anaheim and Dallas. But I put together a list here of some of the players, and we'll just go through these quickly. We don't have to rate them thumbs up or thumbs down, but we can just look at the results here and what happened. The first one on the list was James Reimer. James Reimer, 5 years, $3.4 million in Florida. He was now I believe Luongo was exposed in the expansion draft, but that was more because he was 38 and they knew he wasn't going to be taken. But if you look at Reimer's statistics with Florida, he had a subpar year. And honestly, if Luongo retires tomorrow, I think Florida's in trouble with James Reimer as their #1 goalie.
Yeah, I think they are, and I think we can't totally say that was a failure yet, because he might turn around and surprise us. He's had better days, but right now it doesn't look great.
Yeah, I mean, we're only dealing with one 82 game season of evidence, whether it was a failure or not. To me, this one is I thought it was a failure from the moment it was signed. The Michael Bodker signing in San Jose. 4 years, $4 million AAV. He had 10 goals with San Jose last year. I don't know what Doug Wilson was thinking.
I think he was just thinking he would get a skilled player, throw him in there with some veterans, and get more results.
I mean, I honestly think that and okay, maybe they were ready to walk away from Patrick Marleau, and Patrick Marleau is 38 years old, so it might have been time. But a contract like that cost you any flexibility you had to offer Marleau enough money for him to stay. So in retrospect, I think that was a costly signing for the Sharks. Jamie McGinn, who played wonderfully with Buffalo, and then they traded him to Anaheim. He signs with the Arizona Coyotes, 3 years, $10 million. And he went from 22 goals with the Ducks and Sabres to 9 goals with the Coyotes. Now that might be a product of the fact that he had nobody to play with.
I think that was a whole mishmash. It's funny because he's on my keeper league team, right? And I had to decide whether I would retain his services or not. And I decided to do it based on the fact that he'll have more to play with this year and could bounce back. And so I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt and say that was just a bad situation for him. And it's not like he's the kind of player that can play and score on his own, So that one's the jury's out on, I think.
Well, here's one that because you attend many a Philadelphia Flyer game, and that's Dale Weiss. Now, Weiss had a great first half with the Canadiens, and then was traded to the Blackhawks, and he did nothing there. And it was puzzling in early July of last year when the Flyers signed him for 4 years at for $9.4 million. So I believe the AAV was in the mid twos.
Yeah.
And he had 8 goals in 64 games. So how much of a contributor was Dale Weiss to the Flyers?
He was getting lost in the Hackstall system. I felt like he was coming out of it at the end of the year. I think there was too much pressure on him at times. I know he could play better than that. It's not a tremendous amount of money. I think the Flyers were just looking for another veteran and some leadership and a guy who could play a physical game and sort of play the Hackstall kind of system. Maybe he'll do better this year, but it doesn't look great. I admit that.
Now, okay, we'll take these not individually, but as a group, because they all made the same amount of money, and $6 million AAV. But I'm putting it on a scale. Let's put them in order in terms of best to worst signing. There were four guys: David Backes, Louis Eriksson, Kyle Oposo, and Milan Lucic. Now I'll go through this. Lucic had 23 goals, 27 assists with Edmonton. Oposo had 19 goals in 65 games with the Sabres, got hurt at the end of the year. Eriksson had 11 goals with Vancouver. Backes had 17 goals and 21 assists with Boston, played center and played wing. And I think, for the expectations, probably met them with the Bruins. I think the worst one by leaps and bounds is Louis Eriksson.
Yeah, I don't think there's a close one. I always felt like his numbers would decline a little bit. I get that they wanted someone to maybe play with the Sedins. It's not worked out. It hasn't.
Now, I think, even though he had the most goals of the four, I'm not going to say that Lucic is the guy who's the best ranked. I think actually the best signing of the four was probably Oposo, even though
I still think it's Okposo, depending if this concussion thing is cleared up, because he did that battling through that with 19 goals. He's clearly got the highest upside. Yeah,
the thing that's concerning about Lucic is remember, he was brought in to play with McDavid, and then they discovered after a while he was too slow to play on McDavid's line.
Now, Georges Laraque will tell you that McDavid had his year because of Lucic, and maybe a little of that is true where he policed things around him, but I can't give too much credit to that. So I'm in your camp on that.
Okay, well, you bring that up, and I want to counter with something, because I know in Toronto, the biggest criticism of the Maple Leafs last year, everything was rosy and beautiful except for one thing: the 4-year contract to Matt Martin. The analytics aficionados despise that contract and say it's wasted money. Right. And my contention is that Matt Martin, even though he's a fourth line guy, Matt Martin is a guy who keeps people accountable. And if somebody had taken a run at Nylander or Marner or Matthews, that Matt Martin would have been there to knock the guy's block off. And I still think that deterrence in this league has a place. It's significantly lowered, but I still think now maybe they overpaid him at $2.5 million, but that's not a ridiculous contract. I think that contract is acceptable. What do you think?
I think it's acceptable. Having spent a lot of time, not like you, but at different events with that team, the outdoor game and other things. I was in their locker room a little bit more this year than in other years, and I saw what impact Martin had in that locker room, doing interviews, talking to the young players. I was watching that, and there was a really good effect there. And I think that's as good a reason why he was brought in as just, policing things on the ice too. Right. But the veteran presence is huge for him. And so you're not going to ever see that on an analytics sheet, but I'm okay with the signing.
Yeah, no, you don't sign somebody for $2.5 million to be the best buddy, but that glue for a team. He's very, very close to Mitch Marner. Yeah. He's very popular in the room. He's the guy that they touch gloves with at the beginning. He's a leader in there. Yes. You may want to say that it's going to be Matthews or Leo Komarov or one of the veteran guys. One of the leaders in that Leafs locker room, and Mike Babcock knows that, is Matt Martin. So, absolutely. Okay, Franz Nielsen, 6 years, $31.5 million. So that's a little over $5 million AAV with the Red Wings. He had a decent year, 17 goals, 24 assists. My problem with that signing is the fact that Detroit is a team that is on the verge of rebuild. And why do you bring in a guy on a 6-year contract?
They were still thinking they were in it. And they're still thinking sort of that they're in it. They have a new building. They have to have some guys who could score. He could score a little bit. So he at least gives fans something to watch. At the end of the day, you have to give them something to watch, especially when you have a new building and you're going to charge them more money.
Yeah. Troy Brouwer, a 4-year, $18 million contract with the Calgary Flames. Brouwer had 13 goals and 12 assists. It was just not a good –
he's an okay player. He's always been an okay player, but he is another guy like Matt Martin that is very well respected, can control things on the ice temper-wise and temperament-wise. And so you do have to pay some money for that nowadays when you want a guy like that can play physical, can score a little bit, can help your other players. They paid a little bit too much for that.
And finally, the contract that broke many a heart in the GTA and Detroit and Buffalo. Steven Stamkos in his 8-year, $68 million contract with the Tampa Bay Lightning. I mean, obviously Tampa is happy that he stayed. They're not happy that he suffered a season-ending injury after, a month?
Yeah.
I mean, I love Stamkos as a player. He's a supreme talent. But the recurrent injury problems with him, that really has to concern Tampa Bay. I mean, unless this is just a hiccup and then he straightens out. But he has been injured for major chunks, I think, of 3 seasons. And this takes a toll on an organization when you're paying $8.5 million for a guy who's not there half the time.
I don't think they care. I really don't. He's still the face of the franchise. This is a guy who, in a Tampa Bay Lightning jersey, has scored 321 goals so far. He's going to get 500 goals in a Tampa jersey. I don't think anybody cares. And
he's probably going to be a Hall of Famer. But let's just say, I think they want him.
In his 17 games, he had 20 points. You know what I'm saying? He gets his points.
He was having a fantastic year. There's no doubt. It's just a question that he just the injury in Boston where he breaks his ankle. The injury last year. I mean, it happens, man. It happens. It just seems to. He seems to be a magnet for it. So anyway.
Yeah, if it had happened in Toronto, oh my God. I can only imagine what would have happened.
Well, it wouldn't happen in Toronto because everything went right for Toronto last year. So he would have led the league with 120 points and everything would have been beautiful.
Yeah, kumbayas for everybody. I get it.
We will be back tomorrow with another edition of the Buzzcast. Eklund should be back. For Russ Cohen, I'm Michael Agello. Thanks for watching, and remember, without the buzz, it's just hockey.